Welcome to the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream on twitch.tv/DDOstream. It's been a while. It's nice to be back. And I have with me a guest here today, that being our executive producer, Severlin. So let me get him unmuted in Discord real quick so that he can say hello to us. Hello, Sev. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. Appreciate you being with us here today. We've got Update 57 coming out soon. It's on Lamania this week for a preview. And so we're going to be talking about Update 57. We'll talk about just kind of generally what we have going on. But the main reason we have you on here today is Q&A from chat. So it's been a while, really, since we just kind of had you stop by for general community questions. And we felt this might be a really nice way to kind of re-kick off the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream right ahead of Update 57 and just sort of relax and have a fun time with it. So welcome and thank you for being here.
I love how we start by saying, "So how have you been?" Like I don't talk to you every day.
That's true. Well, and even often over like the internet as well, because we're working from home an awful lot these days. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what has you most excited right now in Dungeons and Dragons Online?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, we're doing hit point pass and imbue stuff, which the players have given great feedback on. We've done a lot of changes based on that feedback. I'm super excited to see that. Honestly, I was getting a little tired of doing builds and kind of making them better in favored souls. So having a place where I can get more hit points will be nice. I'm really excited, kind of like on the falconry changes. I know it's minor, but I like falconry and thematically, and it always kind of bummed me out that you'd hit the falconry attacks, and by the time the bird came down and did the damage, the thing would die in a group, and you're like, oh my god. So that's good. I kind of want to try a couple of niche falconry builds. I'm excited to have gotten my level 20 cloak over on hardcore.
Nice.
After dying 3 times.
Nice.
So that was good.
I mean, not nice that you died, but nice that you got to level 20 and got that cloak. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was good. And yeah, so that all looks good. The imbue stuff will be interesting. It's super complex. I kind of have to play it, I think, to go through. The math looks good to me. I haven't played it though, so I do want to try the falconry stuff as well. I always had a soft spot for having things be chomped by a pet, so that would be cool. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the content. I haven't played it at all. I'll probably be surprised. So that'll be cool. Also, it'll be nice to be able to take fighter and actually have a bonus for it. The feats were nice, but I found them somewhat limiting, and that second wind, it looks really good for survivability.
Yeah, I've got a tank that's going to be really looking forward to that over on Kyber in the coming weeks myself. I've been playing a bunch of Dark Apostate. I've got a kind of a light cleric build that I've been using for, gosh, at least a couple of years now, and the addition of Dark Apostate really allowed me to do a lot of what I was doing with that cleric build already, but also add a lot of kind of negative burst damage and things like that to it, and I've really been enjoying playing that since Update 56 came out myself, so that's been pretty cool. Yeah.
Of all the builds to reach level 20 in hardcore, I actually had a rogue splashed ranger Tempest.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear you on melee. I played through and do a lot of melee. It's pretty good. The survivability is good, and the extra hit points will really be nice when you have to dive in. Tempest wasn't that bad, but some of my other melee builds seemed a little vulnerable, considering I had to sort of jump in as compared to my artificer repeater Eldritch Knight hybrid, where I was just trying to abuse the dice. Yeah. So I wanted to see how that works with a imbue. Unfortunately, my ultimate undoing on that character was that I didn't have evasion, and I made some poor choices in something that was fireballing me from up above.
See, I think about the other side. So one of the things I splashed into was a little bit of the Fury of the Wild Epic Destiny, really for the wider unconsciousness range. And then I went mostly into, I would need to relook again. I think it's mostly Divine Crusader with some Exalted Angel mixed in there as well, essentially. I've got it spread out a little thinner, I think, than some people might, but it works for me. And what it means is that even when I die, I've got some kind of hit points frequently being procced against me, and so I'll get up enough to be able to heal myself back and get back into the fight. And so I've been thinking about that on that Dark Apostate as well, and that's been pretty sweet. So
we have some juicy questions already.
We do. So let's get right to them. Do you want to pick one to ask first?
Sure, I'll go right through. Will we see more archetypes in the future? Absolutely. I don't want to name drop any of them, but the staff is super excited to do archetypes. And we already are in the work. We already have some designs. We're working on designs, and I would expect to see archetypes coming soon.
Will the next raid be related to Isle of Dread? I think I've got an answer for that one. Because
it will continue.
Yeah, it's continuing the story.
It will continue the story.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to allow iconic bard reincarnate into archetype? Well, you can always reincarnate eventually back to a first level character to take the new stuff. But one of the things I don't like about the iconics is reincarnation, once you include iconics, becomes kind of weird, and all of the sort of reincarnation is already a relatively complex gaming issue, and adding iconics, because I like Shatterkai, so doing that is so I don't have an answer on that.
Well, the iconics, though, are built around a certain level 1 base class, and even if that base class in the future gets archetypes, I don't think the intention is to support all those archetypes rather than, say, the base class that the iconic was built with in mind, I think.
So,
yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Are there more thoughts beyond EDF changes for support for hybrids, such as dual role, melee ranged ranger, or melee caster favorite soul? So one of the things that we've been talking about, and this is not an announcement, is having dual stat augments. So basically, rather than having a strength augment, we'd have an augment that gave 2 stats instead, but no augment would give 2 stats that both increased hit points, and no augment would give dual stats that increase con. So you could get strength int, you could get int wisdom, and to do that, there's a lot of kind of hybrid people that really have a hard time boosting a second stat that I think would benefit from a dual stat augment that would just, for the same price, put up 2. So some of the classes that require multiple stats might benefit from that kind of thing. So that's one of the things that we were sort of talking about on that.
That's interesting. And they would still get the same top bonus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's kind of interesting. It's actually kind of hard to find a strength int build that can benefit from that, but the builds that do will really benefit from that. But it probably, like getting a strength int enhancement, I don't know that they'll benefit from a lot of the power builds that are already really, because part of the game is kind of getting as much under 1 stat as possible. And so dual augments will sort of relax that necessity and let you sort of open up your build a little bit.
I need the strength, dex, wisdom, constitution, charisma version of that.
Yeah, no, that won't happen. And you won't get con things, and you won't get like wisdom dex, because what that will do is you just replace all your dex for wisdom dex and you get extra hit points. So I don't imagine that there will be ones that boost your stat. You boost 2 different stats. So that's one of the things that we sort of were talking about for that. Um, what else? Jesus, a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we got a lot of, yeah, we did. I'm trying to both keep our place in the question line while also kind of scrolling ahead and keeping an eye on things. DDO Jinx asks, do you think we'll get a spell point pass in the future? You know, we are currently working on a hit point pass in update 57, so naturally the idea is, well, what about some of the other areas?
Sure. I think that one of the things, spell point pass is tough, right? Resource management is a tough thing to do because once a game loses resource management, reintroducing it adds this like pain point that is really unpopular. And so what ends up happening is you get sort of like the design people like me, they're like, oh, maybe the spell points should be more meaningful. And then other people are like, oh my God, I can't finish these quests now because I run into spell point. The other thing that happens is I think that the little Reaper boosts are a little too generous. I actually find on my casters that it's easier to do Reaper 1 because I don't run out of spell points as much because those little boosts are so generous. Whereas Elite, and I'm talking about first life characters, obviously, when I'm talking about Elite, or like third life characters, that they sort of have to be more careful. So that's one of the things that we want to do. I think that one of the things that I would like to do to approach it thematically, and this is just my personal thing, this isn't this is what the team is thinking, is give more interesting ways to spend extra spell points to give more like kind of iconic moments so that if you are doing that, if you do have the spell point, you can spend it. The other issue is that not running out of spell points is actually not something that's universal. I think that if you're playing a favorite soul or a sorcerer, it's very different than if you're playing a wizard or a cleric, where they actually have to maybe be more concerned about the spell points. I think that the split between the two has grown too great, where sorcerers are really just, they have so many more spell points. So
All right. This next one's a pretty big question. This one's from Venividi Whoopsie. What was the thinking behind the Imbue revamp, if I may ask? As in, why devote time and resources toward the imbuement revamp over other possibilities?
I mean, the design speak answer is that it was kind of a mess when you were dealing with all of the different views. But so behind the scenes, there's another reason that the devs don't want to talk about because they don't want to set false expectations. Every single imbue, every single proc basically puts an effect on an enemy. And when you have many, many procs on your weapons and you're at max level and doing top haste and top attack speed, those procs are stacking up to cause a lot of server lag. Not hitching. It's not something that would cause a hitch, but it will cause both server and client lag. I don't know if people have noticed, but when you're playing a top build and you're attacking, you finish attacking a boss, your little like text wheel will keep going. It can't keep up. And so that it'll continue going on. It can't even keep up. We've had to change the code so that it queues up essentially and go. That's a lot of both client demand and on the other side server demand. And so changing all of these diverse points into one proc that scales off of dice should have a fairly significant server performance behind the back end. But it's not something that the players are likely to see unless I think you might see some change in, like, if you're in a 12-person raid with a lot of melee and a lot of proc dice, you may see that, like, your skill use is a little more pep. It's not something that will be night and day, but it's an important step in the long-term health of the servers. Much like we had to make some double shot and double strike changes, these are things that we're seeing are have a high cost. So in addition to cleaning up so that when you multi-class, you can get more synergies. Because I think it's kind of cool that if you wanted to make an assassin poison build, you could actually like have your poison daggers and then build up a whole bunch of dice elsewhere. But also, it's just the lag when we were seeing that we could lag out our local servers, which is really hard to do with these heavy prop builds. We knew that we needed to do something about that.
All right. Well, this next question is one that's come up in the past. This one's from Top Hat Tolab. We still have a spot missing in our guild airships. Can we fill that spot with Top Hat Tolab? Would like to see a legendary green steel altar. I've also heard something like, say, the Test Dojo style kobold or some kind of way to measure DPS. And there's certainly some other options that we could go with as well. But we're ever going to fill that gap?
Yeah, we need new ones.
Yeah.
We should make the choice a little harder by like putting out 5 good new ones.
Oh no.
The guilds will have to make guilds will have to make a hard choice, right? Like a test kobold is one that we've been meaning to do. It's just one of the hard parts is you have a list of all the cool stuff you want to do, and it just stuff gets pushed down and it's just sitting down there waiting. I think that the green steel is a great idea too. Green steel right now is not the top crafting system by any means, but there are still players that get good use out of it. So those are 2 good suggestions.
So I've got a couple of questions about the imbuement thing that sound more like questions to the systems folks about, like, say, the Scion of Elemental Water and Fire losing its native imbue status, things like that. Am I correct on that, or do you want to address that question?
So I think that it's out of scope for an hour sort of general talk people to start deep diving. I love deep diving into systems. I would love to talk about, like, oh my God, the cost on Swashbuckler. You know, a lot of the stuff is like 2 CP and really should be 1. And we really need to do a pass. And some of these procs I'm not too sure about. And how is this going to affect my Eldritch Knight Artificer mix? But I think that that's kind of out of scope to talk about the specifics of it, and maybe a little bit unfair without the devs actually here to talk about, you know, the deep dive of some of these changes and why they did it. So I'd rather keep that sort of in the wheelhouse of the people, either in the forums where we can talk math and have time to do it, or with the devs here where we can deep dive into some of the design decisions behind the scenes.
We could probably answer this question from Makubre. Why was there not a new color on the Night Revel's armor this year? I think I know an answer, but do you know?
I mean, the mount and the sweet cloak, but the mount took up a lot of our art resources devoted to the Night Revels. It's much harder to do a mount than to do armor with different color. And so we wanted to do something special this year. And the mount was basically how we budgeted. So we actually budgeted more art for that in order to get that mount. And like the mount's super sweet, probably too cheap. I think I got it in like one night by running 3 characters through Night Market. So like maybe the future mounts might be a little more expensive, but like the mount is really good looking for a festival.
Yeah. We do have quite a few color options on that Reaper's plate mail. It is true that we didn't do a new color this year, and I'm sure that doesn't mean the end of new colors for it. But I think just given limited kind of resources, it was like, well, do we need a 6th or 7th color now at this point?
Well, I think that a lot of people want, like me, and by a lot of people I mean me, want the red one to be much more blood red than sort of the dim orange. But so we do that. I also would like a light armor version. I'd like Maybar armor that wasn't like Death Knights. Or cool robes. I think there's a lot of like more lich-like robes rather than the thing that we can do in future years.
Yeah. So I'm sure it'll be back in the future, I guess, is the thing maybe I didn't quite say yet. So.
Ooh, expired ingredients can go to the auction.
Yeah, I
That's good.
noticed that's
That would need
a
to
Night
be
Revels ingredient issue. By the end of Night Revels, things tend to get pretty. People have quite a few extra ingredients to pass around in some cases, but
Yeah, I have to spend my extras before it closes.
Yep. Well, you've got this through this weekend essentially. So
Yeah.
technically through November 1st, it'll be going down with our presumed downtime on Wednesday morning of next week. So
The revamping Reaper leadership is still in the works. We'll be looking at that.
okay.
We do not support any kind of autoplay functionality like autofollow. You probably shouldn't do that. I would expect, unless something goes wrong, that next week is not an unreasonable expectation for an update. But
we have some specific kind of, I guess you could say, workplace environment considerations that are impacting our specific timing on a few things. So it might be a little hard to give a definitive statement as to when update 57 might be coming out today. But
sorry,
it'll be in the real near future.
Someone's accusing me of acknowledging it, but address it. What are we talking about? On the candy, putting on the auction house? Is that specifically what we're talking about? Because we definitely want to address that. I wasn't aware it was an issue, but like now that someone says it, it's like, oh, that's not good. So we definitely want to do that. Or are we talking about the auto follow plugin?
I'm not. I think that they are talking about the expiring
we agree
ingredients
on
in the
that.
auction house.
I think we can just mark the ingredients to not be auctionable, and it'll just be done.
Yep. And it's specifically maybe more of a community issue for Night Revels because we do expire the ingredients in Night Revels every year. So.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's get some more questions from folks here. Give us a couple questions to talk about.
Yeah, there's someone earlier was talking about tanks being less viable. I didn't quite get that, so I apologize. And it scrolled off the top.
That was really about a perception about some of the imbuement changes, that they feel their tank will be less viable after those changes. There were others in the chat that suggested that the opinion on that may be somewhat varied, right? But the goal is certainly not to make tanks less viable with these imbuement and hit point changes.
Yeah. So wands. I'm going to deep dive into wands because we've been talking about wands for a while, and someone made the mistake of asking that, and probably I can waste time on that.
Sure.
So one of the things that we wanted to do, we were talking about for wands, which we probably can't do, is having an actual like wand slot. And when you have a wand slot, it becomes a clickable item on your inventory that you don't have to change weapons with. So but it takes a bit to change your wand. So you can kind of load up a wand and then you just click it and your character just goes blink without sort of having to manage, swap to wand, click it, swap back, because nobody uses wands because they're a giant pain in your butt, basically. The problem we ran into is until we revamp the inventory system, the way the inventory system is implemented is that we've used all its slots. So making a wand slot would have to be like a new system on top of that. We can't just add a new slot because we've used all of them. So we either have to extend the current slot system and this has been an issue for a number of things. So like, it would be really cool if you could just, okay, I can only have one wand slot at a time, and there's a cost to swapping wands, maybe an animation time, so you can't just right down the line of wands. But it would be kind of an interesting gameplay is if you had your wand and you could use it. So you could decide what is the most important wand for me to have. Is it something that will buff me, or is it something that, I want to fireball things to the face? Because obviously that's also fun. And so that's one of the things that we were looking for wands, which would make the kind of wands do extra damage and the dropping wands a lot more viable. Unfortunately, the actual implementation problem we ran into is that. So yeah, we've considered wands before. It's just, you have to be careful. It's, touching the inventory system is dangerous. So.
Okay. Let me just, this is somewhat related. Ninyeka, what about a spell ingredient pouch? We had one also with a potion bag, essentially, that came to the other game. Can we get that for DDO? We still don't have the ability to use things from these kind of bags that we have in DDO. There's a technology issue. Yeah.
The LOTRO inventory system works different, and so using things from a bag is something that they can do that DDO can't. And so that would be a thing to do, so I looked into this and I looked at the code because essentially a quiver is a bag and you can fire and reload from a quiver. And that's all a long thing of custom code that isn't really applicable to other kinds of bags and is a mess a little bit, you know what I mean? And so doing that for the other things would basically have to be done from scratch. Somebody else, sorry, custom tabs the character's inventory will probably remain sort of, you place it rather than a list. And we'll keep the other stuff for banks. I don't want to try to touch more bank stuff if we don't have to. The code obviously is complex and hard to work with.
We have a question about more colors for, they call them Reaper wings, but sort of like the wings that debuted with the Reaper difficulty system and have become available on hardcore. I assume the answer is yes on that, right?
For more colors, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're always looking for more stuff, so.
We had a specific request from Zims in chat asking for black Reaper wings, and that sounds like something we should probably do. So
yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that sort of what we want to do. Can we get sorting filters? So one of the things that I think will be cool, thank God, in terms of like casting, is we change the name of the components to be like class, tier or level, spell level, and then so that when you're looking at the vendor, you can just buy Sorcerer level 4 instead of having to remember that it's Guano. And I think that's in for this update if you check it out.
That's good.
So
yeah, that's good.
One of the things that I'm looking for. And you know what? As much as I would love to go around and do fencing and basketball with my shoelaces tied together, if I never waddle through deep water again, I will be totally happy. I'm going to get wands of Longstrider just so I never have to do that again.
This is the second time I've seen this question asked from Tareth, so let's get it answered. They have a specific UI sort of suggestion, which is that the shared bank uses arrows to move between gear, although you can drag as well. But the TR and character bank uses a scroll. Will there be a decision on the way this works? Are we going to standardize the UI among our bank system?
Sorry, say that again?
Tareth wants to know, basically the shared bank uses arrows, but the reincarnation cache and character bank uses a scrolling mechanism. Will there be a decision on the way this works? They would like to see it merged, presumably.
Okay, so basically they do two different things. One of the reasons that we can give out more bank space now is because with the arrows, every time you click an arrow, it actually loads a different set of gear. It's not one set of gear that's loaded into memory that the UI then scrolls through. It's a different set of gear that goes to the database and pull it in. That's why we can give you more character storage, because that weight isn't carried along. Whereas the scroll bar is just all the stuff is loaded into memory. So if you see us move from the scroll bar to the arrows, it's because we're trying to make the game more performant so that the stuff loads on demand. Does that make sense? That's why there's two different things. If the scroll bar means that all of that stuff is loaded and you can look at it. and the arrows mean that it's loaded on demand. And that's why even though it's not obvious as a player, why do you have two different systems? There's actually a reason for that. And I would expect that for many things, we want to go to arrows as much as possible because the arrows mean the items are getting loaded on demand. That said, we are unlikely to touch the TR cache because that is can I say the B word? Well, I guess
Probably not. Probably not.
That's a pain in the butt to work on. And I would not expect us to do further work on the TR cache anytime soon. I mean, basically, you saw the halo from banks.
Yeah, we've had some bank issues in recent months, have we not?
God,
so, yeah.
what a pain.
Yep.
And that's one of the things, it's awesome that we have new people working on the game and they are super cool and love working with them and they're doing super good work and passionate. But our code is 15 years old and it's been worked on by many people. And you have to be careful. And there's a lot of gotchas that if you kind of don't know, and obviously we've seen frustration from the players. And we went and revamped the bank. It's just caused so much halo because there's so many layers of cruft on that system. And you have to really be careful. So I'm not anxious to go into that. Also, the inventory is the same way. So when people are like, hey, can you do this cool one idea? And I'm like, oh my God, right? We just want to be careful that we don't do that. I think everyone is sick of hot fixes at this point, including us.
Yeah.
We really don't want to do that kind of stuff again. And so we want to make sure that we're super clean going forth.
I'm looking at questions. I don't have an immediate one to go. So I kind of like Dre's question here, though. This answer will have changed over the 10 years or whatever that I've been getting this question. But is the plan still to eventually deprecate the reincarnation cache?
No, it's probably not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it works fine as it is. One of the things that's very important is when it's time for reincarnation, this is what we don't want. Hey, I'd love to reincarnate and start my character fresh. Oh, I have to do tons of inventory management before I do it. It's already bad enough because you're still dealing with your old inventory, your old TR cache. So the TR cache probably, it's a little clunky still. Better than it was before. You now have sort of the whole list and it opens up as a separate bank tab. I think that it probably won't change for a while. So yeah. I don't think that the TR cache is going to change in the short term. Maybe if we have some tremendously awesome whole inventory system upgrade later. I'm not saying it will never change. We just don't have plans right now to sort of go on that.
I kind of feel like
we've been doing bank changes to be able to give people more inventory. Right. I know that we gave people a lot more character inventory. Now we have to give more account inventory. Holy crap! I'm throwing away items because my account bank is full.
All right, so this is kind of a difficult question, but let's put it out there. So they're saying U56 was, quote, less than stellar in both quality and implementation. We had some of the hot fixes that we were talking about earlier related to the bank issue. So what steps are we taking to try to minimize the amount of kind of disruption that we saw in Update 56?
Yeah, we have to do better. There are a couple of things that caused it. First of all, one of the hard things about doing expansions with this small team is during the expansion time, the team is really dedicated and super passionate. And what happens is they know that the update's coming, so they don't take vacation time. And then when the update's done, they all now have this stacked up vacation time that they take. And we ended up having a number of people taking vacation time around U56. And we had a great, fortunate team event where someone was on paternity leave. And because of that, you just have these, and we want them to take vacation time. It's important for the people to be able to have a good work-life balance. So a lot of people were out that might have caught some of these issues. The other thing is we have a couple of new, awesome, passionate people that are fantastic, but there's some gotchas in the code, and some of, there's some growing pains when you bring on a new person. And you saw a lot of this happen for that. So the other issue is that the we just hadn't done bank stuff in a long time,
Yeah.
and we just didn't realize the halo of touching the inventory system. So
well, I think we did realize. I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you on it, but I think that we went into this inventory, some of these changes, knowing it was a pretty significant series of changes, and the potential for Halo was there. We just ran into more of the Halo than we anticipated.
Yeah, like if you've done it before, you know that, oh, this could affect character transfer. You know what I mean? Like character transfer is turned off because we ran into an issue where all your items disappear because they're in the wrong bank tab. That's something that comes with experience. So one of the things that we're doing is like we're trying to revamp our way of tracking things on the QA side to help them. The other nice thing is Tolero actually has not been producer for that long. So one of the awesome things is that coming from where they came from, as Tolero moved into D&D producer, there was still a lot of old tasks. And so Tolero ended up in a situation where she had like 3 jobs. She was still working and helping on the marketing and teaching someone. She was working as a producer, and she was working on branding, and she was still involved in a lot of the product management of new systems like the launcher and other things. Now that those things have quieted down by the end of the year, we've already seen improvements that Tolero can pay more attention to QA and move through all of that. And so I think that that's going to be a improvement. We've already seen improvements. It's just that hasn't rolled into the updates.
Yep.
Now that said, now that I say that, the only problem with doing this is I know that I've, like, all the devs are cursing me because I've essentially woken the lich in order of the next update, and we'll find something weird, a side thing, because I've said, like we're doing it. So I apologize. Whatever happens in U57 is definitely my fault now that I've said that. But there was a perfect storm of things that caused like a lot of hot fixes in Halo, and I think that we will be better in the future.
Yeah. I should mention specifically, someone is asking about the direct reason why transfers are currently disabled. There's a bug right now where items that are in a character bank custom tab are not properly transferring to their destination world. They are transferring, but when they arrive on the destination world, they're in a non-visible state. And that's an issue we're currently working through right now, which will presumably be fixed in our next game update, or pretty close to it. So
yeah, if it was something that players could fix by logging in and logging out, then it would be less of an issue. I think that's already. I think the fix of that is already in and should be in the next update.
I think so too. Yeah.
We can turn back on transfer. Believe me, I have a Shatter Kai Tempest rogue build that hit level 20 on hardcore. I need to get over to the normal servers.
All right. This is sort of a general question. Corche asks, what are we doing to bring in new players in anticipation of a certain movie, the D&D movie, coming out that I'm very excited for in March of 2023? We
have some cool plans for next year.
Yeah.
We are fully aware that like there's excitement around the movie. It looks cool. There's some cool stuff. And yeah, we definitely want to do stuff next year coming around the movie. So I'm excited. It looks good from where I stand. I like Chris Pine, for instance, and I like the other actors and actresses, and it looks like they have and the monsters looks pretty cool. The displays for
I think
beasts
so
look
too.
cool in previews and all of that. So
I liked the kind of splash of the acid attack on the dragon and that one CG effect. I thought it was real cool. It just,
yeah, I agree.
yeah. Really good stuff. All right, this next one here. Given the layers of complexity in enhancements, feats, stat, gear, destinies, etc., can you talk briefly about our process when evaluating new races and classes or changes to existing classes and abilities? So how do we approach that complexity when we're making our changes to these things? That's how I read the question.
Jeez, talking about an open-end question. Like specifically, what are we talking about? Sometimes suggestions and changes are driven because there's a combination of interest from the devs and there's some marketing requirement, right? Like for instance, I would like to see certain races revamped because they just aren't up to modern standards. They sort of art decisions were made, and we'd like to see that, and that gives us a reason to sort of do that. Some of them, honestly, are just projects like really want a spiked chain universal tree. You know, we kind of have it for Shatter Kai, but I would love to see that. I always kind of like that. So that would be kind of cool. And then some of them are just, how can we make the game more exciting? We want to have a rich build meta. That's, I think, one of the calling cards of DDO. But we also want it to be approachable by new players. Right now, maybe it is. It isn't. We probably wouldn't do Goliath because I think that our races are as big as they're going to get. So will Lotro get will DDO get a Lotro-like remaster? Maybe. I would like to get. I would certainly like to go in and revamp the art and do the engines. One of the nice things, though, the engines are far enough apart that it's pain to move stuff from one to the other, but close enough that if we do update some of the graphics to Lotro, we may be able to move those over to DDO and add those tools in. So
okay. I don't think we really want to announce anything, but can we tease any future archetypes? They're saying Gunslinger or Hexblade.
Well, I don't think that. Okay. I'm not teasing anything because I don't want to take, like, one of the fun things about being a dev is kind of doing that announcement, and I don't want to steal that. I'm excited for the new ones. Doing guns is a whole new can of worms. The only problem with that is that not only is it a whole new can of worms for gearing and such, but there's a lot of people that is sort of, it introduces a whole different genre. You know what I mean? Like if you picture D&D in the sort of medieval time frame, whether you're thinking of Europe or the Middle East, or putting guns creates this different time frame, and moving that from place to place is a big step. So I don't want to comment on guns until we make a decision there.
I already replied to, I believe it was Strimtom on Twitter, Archetype Shark. All right, Cleric, Clariome MC Solo. Can we have an auto level process when doing an epic reincarnation to replicate the same build we just had?
Sorry, it scrolled right off. What was the question?
Can we get an auto level process when doing an epic reincarnation to replicate the same build?
The problem, so this is really complex, and the reason why we have problems doing path, no, and the reason is that every single build there's so many things that affect how your build unwinds that everyone is a unique snowflake. So, for instance, when you reincarnate, you get more stat points in many cases. That alone prevents us from creating because all of your stats are different as you go up, and you get more skill points if it went up for intelligence, or different feats are available at different times. And when you start to unwind all of that, it's a giant pain in the ass. So it's the same reason why we don't do as many paths as we used to, because as the build meta grows, the path system has become so labyrinthian that it's really hard to create all the paths you need in order to do stuff. And that is running into the reincarnation system. Heck, one of the things that I want from the reincarnation system is I just want it to inherit my look, so I don't have to scroll through all the hairs and faces in order to get my character's look again. Like writing down like what numbers that I have on my character so I can get back to that. And that is a whole thing, because when you go and do a reincarnation, it's actually a new character entirely, meaning and so that information has to get copied over. But it turns out that a lot of the stuff about your build actually isn't available when you're doing it during character creation, because the character creation part where you're figuring out what you look like isn't actually, your character doesn't exist yet when that happens. So carrying that information through that flow is actually kind of painful.
All right, Matty DDO, can you give us a confirmation if it is possible to get a second chest in the Skeletons in the Closet raid? This has to do with the secret.
I am told that there is something about the Skeleton in the Closet's raid that the players haven't figured out yet. But don't quote me on that, because I'm doing that from memory.
I know that we've seen like a forum thread where people have expressed that they feel like they've sort of run through the information available to them. I think we're going to have some... It's not going to be like a spoiler, but we're going to try to give a small nudge in the next update here to help with that information. Yeah,
I'm a bad person to ask, because I have no problem if the players never figure it out. Like if some weird guild figures it out in 15 years and they're like, oh my God, we finally figured out the second chess question. I don't have a problem for that. So I don't have that much sympathy for
well, I do, because I want that second chest. I need someone else to solve it, and then I can do it. That's how this works here. Yeah, so
I like Easter eggs that the players just never figure it out. So I'm not the person to ask on that. I don't have as much sympathy as some.
I think there would come a time where we would be more explicit with our hints, and I think we're going to have a small one that might help nudge people in this next update. But ultimately, yes, there is a secret going on there. So, yeah.
I think one of the issues with Legendary Shroud is if I recall correctly, it's problematic for us to do a piece of content at 3 different levels.
That's correct, right?
So if something is already heroic and already legendary, it's hard for us to be. It's already epic. It's hard for us to make a legendary version because 2 versions already exist. So the raids that we would visit would be ones that don't already have an epic raid. Like I think the Chronoscope came across as a suggestion at some point, which would be kind of cool. Am I spoiling? I'm probably spoiling something that I shouldn't have.
But even that would mean largely replacing the epic version with like a legendary version if we were to go that route. I don't think we could do 3.
Excuse me.
Yep, no problem. I can mute you if you need.
Does the Chronoscope already have a second one?
Yeah, it should. Yep, epic. It's got an epic version, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, no, I mean, yeah, we could just create a brand new version, copy over the stuff, and start from scratch, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah. DDO Experience asks, what about Too Hot to Handle? Is there still a secret way to complete it that the players haven't discovered? Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I think players have got that one figured out. So
that is indeed a good question.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Yes, you can do it with me in the group. There we go. We have about 10 minutes or so left on the show, and I do have a few other things I can talk about as well before we wrap things up. Are there any kind of major questions any questions that you're seeing that we should
Oh,
answer?
the legendary shroud is giving not good enough gear. Is that the question?
I think, I think the question is legendary shroud maybe should be legendary, huh? But also the gear, was really good. The legendary green steel was nice when it came out, but as new systems have come out since,
Yeah.
it is no longer quite the shiny that it was. So making a kind of a legendary version of legendary green steel might be something to do.
Will melees get any love next few updates? I mean, we're doing a hit point pass. Almost every melee tree should be getting favorite soul-like hit points. That's big. And honestly, my barbarian that I just reincarnated into is wrecking things with strike through, even more than my various types of paladins. So I think that right now one of the issues is honestly the Reaper modifiers for spell casting might be a little too generous, and I think that that's one of the issues that the melee are running into. Um, but I have no announcements to make on that.
Well, I
But
mean, it's
yeah,
tough though, because it's also just one of those things where if you're ranged, you are generally not going to get hit as much. So especially on High Reaper, as the damage goes up, right? Not getting damaged is generally something that is going to
right.
outpace getting damaged. So
The whole point of the hit point pass is that like you're in so much more danger as a melee because you're running into the room, and you know in a lot of old quests you can take a repeater and kill everything before it even knows where the hell you are from down. It's harder to do because the devs are more savvy on newer quests and will keep things inactive until you kind of enter the room. But there's still a lot of content where you can pay attention. But there's a difference between ranged and sort of spell casting. So even range with improved precise shot can wreck things because your bolts are going through everything. Whether you're Inquisitor or Repeater or even bows now have been revamped to be much more along the line. But it's just not the same as the wrecking power of the AoE spells, especially if you get that long line of SLAs. So I hear you on that. But on the other hand, when I run it as a barbarian and like with strike through, stuff is going away. Not Ice Storm Fireball going away, but going away well. And I think that the hit point boost will help along that lines for the melee. And I think that you're going to see some hybrid dice builds that I think they're going to be impressive. Some things that didn't seem that good before might all of a sudden be better.
all right, let's wrap up with this question. When will we get our next producer's letter? I should mention that would most likely come from Tolero, not yourself, and probably by the end of the year, I would think. Right? But what do we got to look forward to here in the next couple of months?
What do we have looking forward?
We got Update 57 coming out, and
obviously Update 57,
yep.
And then we're going to be working on like big. We're going to have something big next year in the first half of the year, probably early summer. That will be, I don't want to announce yet because we're still working on it, but that will be fantastic. We're going to have a big anniversary thing that will go through with the movie. I would expect more archetypes. I'd like to do another universal tree, but I don't know where we'll quite fit that in. So I think that will be cool. I would expect another probably refactored raid of some kind. I'd like to do that. So there's a lot of good stuff coming.
We also have Festival and the Winter Games in terms of the events that'll be happening in December and January. We're taking a look at when the next hardcore season will be. So that's something that we'll have more information on in the near future.
We'd like to do
yeah.
right, rather than do a brand new hardcore. Usually, what our goal is a new hardcore, and then the next one is kind of a revisit of an old hardcore season for people that might have missed it. So that will probably be coming up, maybe this year, maybe early next year is my guess. One of the issues that honestly threatens it is this bank issue that's causing the transfer issue. Is like, oh God, we can't do a new hardcore if people haven't had enough time to transfer off the old hardcore.
Yeah. The clock, as it were. And then, we've got Black Friday sales and things happening as well that we'll have a lot of information on later in November. Night Revel's going through November 1st, and Update 57 coming out real soon. So that's going to be a whole bunch to look forward to as well. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Sev. I really appreciate you being here, and we'll be bringing you back in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. Good questions today.
I would mention real quick that we do have our Extra Life charity operation happening here. Let me put that up real quick on the screen while I'm loading into my character. So you can see here that we've done quite well. We're at 17,008 of our 20,000 goal. We haven't even done our game day stream yet. We will be doing one on the other game side on November 4th, and it'll probably just be a singular stream rather than a marathon from me. And I haven't announced the timing of it yet because I just don't actually know. I have to sort of figure out when I'm going to fit it into the schedule, but something probably in early November, I would think. And we'll be doing a DDO stream, probably of Update 57 stuff and some other things as well. But there's a reason I wanted to bring this page up to you quick, and that is that if you've donated this year, and a lot of you have already, but if you have not yet donated, there's plenty of time to do so. I'm taking donations really through the end of the year, but in terms of the incentives and that, I want to get that out by, say, end of November or around there. So if you do donate to us at extra-life.org/teams/standing-stone-games, go to the DDO forums, and you can get more information about the incentives, some cosmetic items, and just kind of minor community awards that we've been able to give out over the years. There is a new Theric Hound creature companion this year. And once you donate, you will follow this link. Once you donate, please fill out the following survey here if you wish to receive incentives for said reason. I'm trying to automate the process a little bit better this year in terms of being able to more quickly get people their stuff. So you're just going to check off the things you want. There's a comment section to add any changes, duplicates, anything else you think I need to know about it. And that's that. All right, I think I'm about ready to log in here. So let me, before we wrap up the stream, I wanted to show off the new cosmetic look at the very least of the new armor and sword here in Update 57, and then show you a little bit of the new public area as well. So let me go do that. All right, there we are. I really like the, let me get into some light. I really like the new cloak here, and I will have the stats on this in the near future. And the armor, thought was looking pretty cool as well. And then check out that sword, man. Check that thing out. It's got a look, does it not? A look I bet some will like. At least I thought it was pretty sweet. And this is the new public area in Sharn that you will get to access the new quests here with Update 57. Grip of the Hidden Hand. You'll be able to access this. I'm not going to run through the quests here or anything like that, but you'll be able to access this there's a vendor here, and you can get to it from the Clifftop Tower in Sharn. For the preview here, we also have something in the test dojo. But you'll see here's the guild airship access, and it's right here to Moorgrave University. And then the other boot for all the Part 1 stuff is right here. So you'll see this is where you'll access the new Update 57 content. And I'm on Lamania here right now. So all right, I am going to real quick show off the loot. In the test dojo here. You can see some of the new loot here in Update 57. Heroic and Legendary. The quest is level 16 on Heroic and 32 on Legendary. Uh, 31 is the level of the loot. I can just equip this stuff so you can take a look at it. We have like a new belt. Boots. And this is the cloak that I'm wearing right now. That's the armor I'm wearing. But, you know, there's also a medium version of it. Got goggles, manacles, a whole bunch of things. This is open right now for you to take a look at. Look at these augments. Add a property, also deal damage on each hit. Or, in this case, equipment bonus to positive and force spell power. Turns it into an implement. Alright. Lots of rings, as you see. Let me real quick pop over to chat. I have not had the chat window up, so I haven't been able to see your chat here. Yeah, normally I put a little window over there, but that was a basic teleportation command. I figured that was okay. I don't have the weekend bonus. Sorry, I don't have the weekend bonus. Alright, I think that is going to do it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back next week with more. I'm not quite sure what we'll be talking about. Depends on sort of what happens here this week. We will be on the live servers running Update 57 as well. I've been working on a couple characters in my absence. I've got one on Orion that's working pretty good, and I've got one in process on Kyber as well. And so you heard some pretty cool things about the future there as well. So planning ahead. But I like my Dark Apostate for now. My person's kicking butt. So thanks very much for being with me, everyone. I'll be back next week with more, and we'll talk to you again soon. Have fun.